Today we're going to be looking at a seasonal staff, an alternative to using guidance, and a cute pupper familiar.
This is Homebrew Roundup.
Welcome everyone, I'm Sean, this is Tony, and welcome back to another Homebrew Roundup of random things that we found on the internet.
Sometimes things fall through the cracks and we just kind of gather up all these things into our folders and eventually just kind of throw it out there into a video of things that we thought were cool that we think you guys would think were cool.
Yeah, exactly. So these are things that we randomly found, but in case you guys have any neat ideas, don't forget to send us an email down below at dmbrewcrew@gmail.com. But let's go and take a look at some of these items.
And this first one is the Spear of Seasons. You found this, and I read this, and I went, huh? And then I understood it later. But
Good.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is the Spear of Seasons. So this is a legendary staff, or spear rather, and this is actually a really interesting weapon. It's legendary, does require attunement, versatile, two-handed, and has reach. So besides the fact that it's a +2 on attack and damage, it essentially lets you change the season within a 1 mile radius in that area once per year.
Right. Now, I want to say staff because it looks like a staff.
Yeah, I know, it really looks like a
staff. But the spear itself changes its appearance based on the season that it's in. And you get these really cool abilities with it. One of them, we're going to read it here. We'll go back to it in a second here, but depending on the season that it's in, it gets 4 different abilities.
Yeah, so for example, if you decide to use this in the springtime, you're going to be dealing an additional 2d6 lightning damage. You can use Lightning Bolt, you can heal someone, and you can actually summon a thunderstorm in a 10-mile radius centered on the caster for up to 2 hours. And you'll see that the other 3 seasons kind of follow suit. It'll let you do additional damage, it'll give you kind of this environmental change into your environment, and allow you to cast other different spells kind of flavored towards said season.
Now, let's say you're in the winter season there, and you want to have spring weather. What do you do?
Well, if you go back up here, so again, you can kind of just immediately change the season with the spear itself. And again, it takes 1 day to adjust the new season, and you cannot use the spear's powers for that entire day.
Right, but it's once per year that when you use the spear, you can actually change a 1 mile radius to a particular season.
Yeah, and it's important to note it's a permanent change, so it'll be permanently winter-like or spring-like or whatever season you change it to.
Haha, take that, Icewind Dale. It's now like Acapulco.
Yeah, seriously.
These other 2 that we saw here are representations of things that we've seen in campaigns that we looked at and went, that's not a bad idea. I like the intervention one, but go ahead and start with the Champion Archer.
Yeah, so Champion Archer is simple. All it really does is once per turn, when you make an attack using a short bow or longbow, you can knock 2 arrows instead of 1. Now, it's interesting because it does say when you make an attack roll for each arrow, if either attack roll does not meet the AC of your target, both arrows miss. If both attacks hit, roll damage for both arrows as if you had made two separate attacks. You do not add your ability modifier to the second arrow's damage.
So you're essentially just getting an extra d4, d6, whatever the arrow does damage-wise if they both hit. The one thing that I'd look at is that it's, you have 2 rolls for 1. There's got to be a way to actually finagle that it would work a little bit better. But then I wasn't even thinking with having extra attacks either.
Yeah, and you made an interesting point because, again, this is a feat, so you are foregoing a very crucial ability score improvement, and typically you would do this because the feat is pretty darn good. I think the idea here is good, again, getting those 2 arrows in there, again, because, like in the books and movies, you always see that Archer getting those 2 arrows out. I think there's a couple ways you can definitely improve on it. Maybe even if it just 1 hits, maybe 2 arrows go off, or something like that, something similar.
Yeah, to the same effect. Maybe you get an added bonus if the second one hits.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
You don't lose anything on the other one. That's what I'd look at, because you are giving up those 4 points.
Yeah.
And well, it's 2 points, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Moving those things around with it, sometimes you don't need that though. Sometimes you rolled really, really well.
This is true.
I've seen wizards with an 18 starting at the first level.
Yeah.
You're like, okay. But intervention, this one here, this is a cantrip. We should mention that was a feat. This is a cantrip.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the original post for this cantrip actually said, I'm tired of my players telling me last minute or forgetting to tell me that they use guidance on a player. So this kind of solves it in a way. It's a cantrip reaction, saying what you take in response to a creature within 5 feet of you making an ability check. It's kind of literally the same as guidance, except it's a reaction spell now.
Right, exactly. And, I could see how that works. I mean, really, truly, I get it. A DM can sit there and go, that's annoying when they do that, and they don't say before or after or whatever. But, truthfully, it kind of makes sense. Why don't we just make guidance a reaction spell?
I feel like they should at this point. I can't tell you how many times that I've heard players say, oh, really quick though, I touch them and cast some guidance, take a d4, and really, it's not a necessary change, and it's not like a necessary cantrip to add to your campaign, but it's a nice little thing if you want to really be technical, or if you want to kind of solve some of those problems. So.
How many times do you get that? Ooh, guidance. Like
I
from
have
across
no
the table.
idea. Oh my god, it's ridiculous.
Now, this next thing here, isn't it adorable? Look at the puppers.
Look at that.
Now, this here comes up as a monster, but I don't necessarily think it's a monster. This is more of a familiar to me.
Yeah, so this is a blink puppy, obviously a spawn from a blink dog. Very, very low CR creature. It's only running around with 2 little hit points. It's got an armor class of 12. It is a tiny fey creature. So really, this is probably not what you're going to send in the heat of combat. I mean, power to you if you will. I wouldn't. But really, though, like you said, and it actually kind of lists down there at the DM's discretion, a character who casts Find Familiar can choose a blink puppy as their familiar.
I think it's adorable. I think it's adorable. The cool thing that I like about this is once per turn, it can do a blink step. So it's got 35 feet of movement, but for 10 feet, it can decide, it can expend that 10 feet and teleport 10 feet instead.
Yeah, which can be pretty useful. I mean, yeah, maybe you can avoid like a trap or a pitfall, but really it's going to allow this blink puppy to essentially avoid some opportunity attacks, as you cannot get opportunity attack when you're teleporting, which is kind of nice.
Right. Now, I have to point out here, we didn't notice this until it was on here or whatever, but it's a tiny fey, chaotic goodest boy.
Yes, and it is true.
Now, this last one here is rather lengthy, and I know it's difficult to read, but we're going to go over it anyway, and we'll tell you kind of the concept and then some of these things, what they do.
Yeah, so this is actually from a video game from Sekiro, but essentially the idea here is that you're adding kind of like these consumable items that will heal you in the heat of combat, and some items that might even heal you on, consecutive turns.
Yeah, in fact, every single one of these, except for the Divine Grass there, does some health, and then on your next turn does some more health. I kind of like the idea that, when you're, a potion, one, done, gone, right? But when you're thinking about food like that, it's kind of cool that it gives you, it's a little heartier kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, I ate a persimmon and I felt great, and then I felt great again, like afterwards. I really like this concept of, it does 2d4 plus 4, health for it, and then next round, that persimmon was really satisfying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Now, it's interesting to note that the game that they got the concept from is a very difficult game, and, you're going to be using a lot of healing items in a difficult game. So this is kind of going on a concept where maybe if you're running like a really hardcore dungeon, or if you are running a campaign where a lot of your encounters are deadly and it's really rough, it's not a bad idea to maybe add like a roll table on potential consumable items that your party can use to kind of barely stay alive. So it's actually kind of an interesting thing. And then Divine Grass is kind of interesting. It actually kind of fully heals you and kind of restores all. It's like a full restore, a full heal from Pokemon. Yeah.
It's the panacea, right?
Yeah.
It cures everything, it heals everything, what have you. It may be a very powerful item. It is a legendary consumable, so you sit there and go, this isn't going to be at the corner market. This may be on top of a mountain somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to find. But, very useful for that, hey, a surprise Tarrasque, that kind of thing.
Take this.
Right. But I really enjoy that concept of these things, and I think that little flavorful foods and things like that really add to the idea of how the game goes.
Yeah.
Now, as always, you can send us things that you think we should look at. And you know what? Honestly, when you send it to us, if it's for this particular series, send it for this particular series. Go, hey, I thought you might like this for the Roundup.
Yeah, exactly. So be sure to send us an email if you do have some neat ideas. And again, if you do like what you see, we actually review a lot of homebrew stuff on the channel, including like full races, classes, things like that. So be sure to subscribe down below and hit the bell. That way you get a nice notification as soon as we get our next video up.
And remember, the best campaigns are always the ones that are, I really want a persimmon now, home brewed. So until next time,
Keep brewing.